Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah. Sick. Thanks everybody for coming out. This is really awesome. My name is Ryan, and we're celebrating 10 years of 8Ball community and the launch of the 8Ball Almanac. Big thanks to Nero Editions for publishing that with us, to everybody who put in so much hard work in designing and editing and everything that goes into making a book. Big thanks to Entrance for having us down here. This is actually the very space that was our HQ in the summer of 2018, so it's nice to be back down here. We have Sasha Ferrer-Jones in conversation with Lele Saveri, ML Hassan, Mason Wilson, and Yoma. I've got notes about all you guys here. From the book, you know. So Lele is a photographer, editor, and EMT. He co-founded 8Ball in 2012. Yoma is living life and has been involved with 8Ball since 2014. Mason is a musician, artist, and 8Ball superfan, and has been involved with 8Ball since 2016. ML is a video artist and performer and has been involved with 8Ball since 2017.
And it's her birthday.
And it's her birthday! Whoa. And Sasha Ferrer-Jones is a musician and writer who has been involved with 8Ball since 2022. So, full family affair. I'll let you all take it away. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much,
Ryan.
Yeah.
Ryan! Guys.
The only person I can reliably text and say I need a code when I need to get in.
Same.
I don't know how the code thing works. Thank you guys for coming out. I'm a baby and I don't know anything, really. I've only been doing a show on 8Ball for a few months. But I'm lucky to know Lele and to meet these lovely people. Anyway, it's not my show. You guys are going to talk about what 8Ball is. Now, if I'm not mistaken, I'm just going to jump right in. But that's the reason it's called 8Ball, right?
Well, that's pretty much, yeah. That's, I think, something between that and all of these, like the second one and then that poster there. It's kind of what gave the name 8Ball, yeah. But I mean, that was the reasons why we had the logo for sure. The It's Never Too Late logo. It was a flyer for an event, like a party that we had at the first billiard. I mean, 8Ball is called 8Ball because we had a billiard. We were running a billiard for like a few months. And so we're using an 8Ball as a logo. And then this was one of the logos and it looked cool and we kept using that. And I think that in the interview that's in the book, I learned from the interview that it was supposed to be kind of a joke about Coke.
No.
Like it's never too late to get an 8Ball.
Yeah. Yes. Just looking for the feds. I have no idea what you mean. So we talked about this once before, and I don't know how many people here know about the beginnings of 8Ball, but and it's a pretty long. Well, when we did it, it was a long story, and so you can do the shorter version, but it's pretty entertaining how you ended up being in the billiard space, and you can tell whatever version you want, but unless everybody here knows the story, does everyone know the very, very beginning story? Because it's kind of amazing.
I give like I try not to talk too much. I want them to talk tonight, but I'm gonna give you the intro, and then
nobody else here tonight can tell that story. So
yeah, that's
yeah.
So I came back. I used to live above this billiard. It was on Grand Street in Brooklyn. It was called Grand Billiard. It was called because it doesn't exist anymore. I used to go there and play pool after hours, like on my way back home. At that time, I was living on a couch on my friend Giuseppe's, who now lives in DR, so it can't really. Actually, now thinking, it matches with it. The owner of the billiard, his name was Alfredo. He was from DR. We became friends, started throwing some parties there randomly here and there, and then he called me up one day asking me to go and meet him, and I went to meet him, and he was waiting there with this Italian guy, and I thought they were gonna like do something to me. So I went with a bigger guy. If any of you know Josh Hubbard, this big English guy, and actually he was kind of trying to like. it was like, you guys get some blanquitos in. We never get blanquitos in. Can you guys? We have this problem that all of these like our people, the Italians moved to Bensoners, all the Hispanic moved to Queens. All of these, this is kind of what now it's called like East Williamsburg as an area. And so it was like the beginning, this is 2012, this is January 2012. It was like the beginning of the gentrification, I guess, there. And so it was like, we just need to have more blanquitos, otherwise his intention was like, let's make this business work with the new people that are coming in, instead of like going out of business. It was a huge space, it was a big like billiard hall. And so he basically said he wanted us to like have parties every week, and I'm not a promoter, I wasn't gonna do like party every week. And so I suggested to like take over one section, which was a bar, and like kind of help him like have a different vibe in this corner, and then the rest of the space, which was much larger, he just ran it in the way that he had been running it forever.
And you were just a photographer at the time, right?
Yeah, I was trying to get out of photography, but I was just a photographer.
And you did?
I did, yeah, successfully.
It worked?
But I did to get out. And
so how did you get the blanquitos to come?
I started asking blanquitos to work for free. And like run
America.
Yeah. And that was it. And then we had this space for like 8 months. And then towards the end of the 8 months, we were doing things like the second flyer, that's Giuseppe made the flyer, that was every Tuesday. He was doing like a pool tournament. The one next to it was like a flyer when at one point we were really like desperate, so we were doing all these flyers called Save the Billiard because we were really broke. Alfredo had like $70,000 debt that we had to cover, so it was a lot of money to pull out. And then the third flyer was like the biggest event, which was the Zine Fair, the first 8Ball Zine Fair.
So that's when it became about zines.
Correct. That's why the name 8Ball, up to them, we never said 8Ball whatever. It was always like, come to the billiard, and there was always an 8Ball. And then I asked Jack Greer to make that flyer, and he made the flyer, and he wrote 8Ball Zine Fair. I just told him, put an 8Ball in there, and he just wrote 8Ball Zine Fair. And that's what it became the name. And you see it says presented by Save the Billiards, because that's what we're kind of.
Okay.
And then that event was really popular, and then one day, a couple of months after the fair, the landlord locked the door. We couldn't go back in, so everything that was in, I don't know what happened to it. And then I was like, whatever, I go back trying to figure out to get out of photography, and then a bunch of people started coming in, and they were like, we should do more fairs. So Nick Setti was one of these people that started coming, and there were a few other people that like started asking to help, and then so at the end of that year we did a Zine Fair. That prompted a connection with these people that then suggested us to do the newsstand, and then blah blah blah, 8Ball now.
You went quickly at the end there.
Yeah.
You want to talk about the Museum of Modern Art or no?
I don't know.
Okay. You know, just one of those things that happened. Okay. And so then how did everyone else all meet?
So then
also 8Ball had but 8Ball has had a bunch of different locations, like 6, 7,
8, I don't even
right.
know where we are now. Several. Yeah.
Several.
And kind of like, I think like doing something like this in New York, like the focus of 8Ball, if people don't know, it was to not make money, or at least that was the original focus. These days it's hard. We're trying to raise 10 grand, we just talked about it today. We have to pay taxes for the first time. So, not having money in New York, like anybody, I'm sure entrance knows what it means to like having to like survive in New York. So it's hard, so you just go anywhere, you find a cheap place, and eventually once you don't pay, you start stinking like every guest, and so you have to find another cheap place, and then you start stinking, and then you find another. That's what I think that happens. So after
it's
the
all
billiard,
an extension of the couch living.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Since when I was on the couch, so the newsstand was very small, but it lasted. It was supposed to be 3 weeks long. We were able to stay 8 months. After that, they were like, okay, now you guys gotta leave. Then we left, and then from that we had Mud Guts, which I think there was some Mud Gut stuff here. Mad Guts was a year. My friend Mark Cross, who's done Mad Guts after since then, also, but it just put the money down for 1 year lease, and we did 1 year. We kept doing it with the idea that like we'll see if we're gonna keep going.
Right.
I don't know if people wanna keep coming. Like at the newsstand, there's some people here. That's how we met Yoma. That's how we met many people. That
For anyone who doesn't know, tell them where the newsstand was.
The newsstand was a newsstand that had been abandoned for several years in Lorimer Grand Metropolitan. I don't know, Metropolitan Station.
It was in the station.
It was inside the station at a time when you couldn't really get reception underground. Now you can, but at the time you couldn't. And so we had a fawn on the wall, and he had been a newsstand, but no one. I guess people weren't making money. MTA was renting newsstand for 10-year leases, which is a lot for somebody to take over, and so nobody wanted to do 10 years lease. So I was really randomly, after weeks of trying to find somebody to let us lease it for only a month, I met somebody who ran the art section of the MTA, and they let me do it as an art project for a month. It was going to be like 1 week of preparation and 3 weeks of events. But then like the New York Times wrote about it that month, and so the MTA was all hyped, and they were like sending like emails internally that somebody screenshotted.
It's very hard to make the MTA happy. You got to be the first person who went into the subway and
I think on
happy.
the side of like projects in the MTA, not like the MTA money. And so they were like, why don't you guys continue to stay? So that was kind of a push for us to stay longer. But yeah, so we kept growing, and then after the newsstand, we were Mad Guts kind of overlapping for a few months. At Mad Guts, we started deciding that we needed to figure out a system to get new volunteers in, and that's how everyone basically joined it. Because eventually we openly said, we need people. If you want to come, just come to welcome days, which were days when we're opening to people to come and learn, and then choose if they wanted to volunteer. And then that's how many phases that I can see here have gone through. Phases of coming to a welcome day and then stick around for a few years until they burn down and then leave, and then some other new people come, and then they will eventually burn out.
And like, what year is this now at this point?
11th. I mean, I'm not even involved. I haven't been involved.
No.
Years.
Where we got to in the story, what year is it at that point?
Oh, that point is like the 2013.
Okay.
I guess.
And that's where you
it
guys.
was the newsstand, and then 2013, is when you started.
Yeah, where you want to take over from.
Yeah, I was just like a fan. I just moved to New York. And the only thing I knew was to go to Times Square to work, and then the newsstand. Because I didn't really have much friends here.
And what was that? Like, if you went to the newsstand, what was there? What would you...
I mean, it was also, like, Instagram was, like, just popping off, and the 15-second videos just started existing.
Mm-hmm.
So they would do, like, nothing would really sell, but they did these, like, 15-second commercials. And I would just be in, like, Flushing, Queens at my uncle and aunt's. I'm like, oh my god, I need that, like, Nick Seffi zine right now. And like, yeah, I hope it doesn't sell out. Take, like, the 7, like, transfer to the E to the whatever, I don't know, and get there, and, like, yeah, they haven't really, like, sold much. I'm really high, yeah.
So it wasn't like the Cronut, it wasn't like a line of people.
No, it wasn't like, yeah.
Sometimes.
I mean, sometimes for sure, but not for the commercials. Oh yeah, hot stuff, ready to go.
Yeah, Yoma was like, sorry, I just want to say this and then I'm not going to talk anymore. But Yoma was like really major character at the newsstand. We called it #1 fan at the time.
Yeah.
We didn't know Yoma's name. It was like #1 fan.
I think it's okay if you talk, just for the record.
No, but I don't, I'd rather not.
So when you volunteered, what did you volunteer to do? What did they have you do?
It was weird because it wasn't even like, I don't think I even knew what the word volunteer really meant. I just like would come, and I just wanted to help out, but it was just like a bunch of people who were like friends with each other who also like didn't know what they were really doing, and so like I couldn't like help out just yet, you know. They were just like, I guess we have to have a meeting now or whatever, and the gates would be closed and there'd be a sign. I was like, alright. And then it was when we started doing Mud Guts and the OG like generation would kind of get burnt out because they were all still young too and wanted to do their own things. Is when there was like room for me to like come in, and like I just like freshly moved here from Southern California, like didn't really have much of like I was just like a blank canvas, so I was like, yeah, like take whatever. And I remember one of the original crew, Priscilla, was just like, I was like, I love cleaning, I love vacuuming. And she's like, Layla's gonna love you. So I was like, yeah, like I love that. And that was just like the start of it, getting into my kids.
And how did everyone else get involved?
I think this is like actually chronologically
Oh,
nice.
order.
That's right. So Mason, you have.
So I started. I was at the School of Visual Arts, and this was 2016, and I started a student coalition with some friends of mine after like the Trump election.
Before, a little before maybe.
Yeah, a little before he got inaugurated. There was just like a lot of like political momentum happening, and I think for a lot of people my age, that was really the first time people were getting like intensely politically involved, and there wasn't any sort of like political kind of like activist space being made like at an art school. And we didn't really know what the fuck to do because like it would, you know, going to like SVA, it's very insular. It's just kind of focusing on your art practice. So we started Student Coalition, and we were like, well, what can we do? And I guess like we can kind of raise money, but what does that look like? So we like got a bunch of friends together, and we were like, oh, we can set up, you know, an art event. And I think there was like a lot of those things happening around that time to raise money. For us, we were raising like funds for this program, Citizenship Now. It was like through like the SUNY schools, and they were helping with people immigrating to the country and doing kind of pro bono work to like get people citizenship. And my friend Alexa was like volunteering, kind of working a little bit at that, what the fuck was it called? It was that museum in a elevator shaft.
Oh, the museum.
Yeah, the tiny little thing, and we were just kind of asking around, we were like, nobody has a space to really host this, so the people that ran that spot told Alexa about 8Ball, and Alexa comes back and is like, I think I found like a place, you know, like somebody that can fund this like art event that we can host. And like, I know we like came up and we like got all dressed up because we thought this was gonna be like a big like, oh, we have to talk to this like Lele, and like we have to just kind of, you know, get all, you know, get everything in order. And I like remember showing up and like, I mean, honestly, I was serving. It was like, she was wearing this like crazy trench and like this really beautiful kind of like vintage. It was like,
I love that you remember what she was wearing.
yeah, it was good. I remember I was very selective. I was like, well, you just have to impress them. You know, you're like 20, 21 at the time or something like that. And we get to Retro Super Future, and then we're like, oh, we have to go to it's in the basement. And then we walk downstairs. And Lily's sitting there, and I know, like, it was just, you know, the scene was kind of just like, at the time, like, they had like that, the kind of the dugout leather couch that was like peeling away, and like somebody was doing a radio show. And then I remember really distinctly that there was a zine workshop happening with I forgot their name, but you were there, and you were sitting over where there was like a bunch of like editing.
Well, at the
yeah, the row of computers
I remember
at the time.
the moment.
Yeah. And we were just, you were like, oh yeah, we'll figure something out, and it was just like very casual, and I think, you know, just got introduced. We didn't really know anything that was happening at 8Ball. In hindsight, I do remember that MoMA show, because I really loved Dis magazine, and there was that show. It was the
New photography.
Yeah, the new photography show. So I went there for Dis, and then I remembered that, but I did not know that these two things correlated. yeah, it was just kind of one of those things where you helped us find a spot. We ended up doing it in the dude that did those like pop-up markets off of Essex Street, across from Beverly's. Back in the what, every weekend. Hester Street Fair. Yeah, he had a spot, and then you set it up, and we were there for a weekend. We raised a bunch of money, which was really sick. You gave us a bunch of zines to like sell there too, and we just raised a bunch of money, which was really great. But around the time that I was there, I think one of the first TV meetings was happening that night, and I was like, oh, like I was studying like media art, and video, and shit like that, and like I just stuck around. They came back every week after that, and met Ray and Giuseppe and everybody that was putting together the TV at the time, and the launch of that aligned with the inauguration. So I was really like 8Ball TV pilled from there on out, and just stuck around after, and then that's how we met, like through TV. Yeah.
I was involved in like the Baltimore DC like zine and like art community, or kind of still am, but I was coming up here kind of commuting for different friends kind of art events, and a lot of my art community was internet based, so it was like people from Tumblr, and then I met Mila, who is kind of like a past generation of 8Ball, and we were part of this like kind of like film and art community on Facebook, and then from Facebook we would kind of like all kind of meet at like different people's like events, and she had a launch of her magazine Dizzy, and
wasn't it here?
Yup, it was here. So she had the first zine launch somewhere else in the city, but then the second issue was here, and I was making videos and all kinds of stuff, but I was putting everything on kind of like Tumblr and YouTube, but didn't have like a specific place that I could kind of garner more kind of attention towards it, because it was like more on the political side. One of the first videos that I brought to 8Ball kind of was a how-to guide, like how-to safety guide for hijabis that I made the day after the inauguration. So that's funny that you guys launched that, and I was making like a video that I was gonna like bring to you guys on that day. And so when I was here, I was telling somebody that I would like make videos, and they were like, "Have you heard of 8Ball?" And I was like, "No." They were like, "Well, they meet in a basement, and you should go." And they have like a TV channel, and it was like 24 hours, and you can like submit stuff to it. And I was like, "That's so sick. Okay, I'm gonna submit my the kind of like different videos I was making." So then I went to one of the basement meetings, because Carly had one of the TV people was like, "Hey, we're having a meeting, you should come on this day." I went, and I was like, "Oh, I'm definitely gonna stick around because you guys had a green screen." And I was like, sick, I can just like come down here and make stuff, and like there's like no strings attached, and it was exactly that. And stuck around and kind of hopped between different groups before I stuck to admin and the community building side of it.
And how are you guys all involved now?
I think everyone's kind of moved on.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone is kind of involved in them. I think. I don't know.
I think like,
it was like on the spot, like your interrogation.
I think for a specific, like, I guess nothing specifically going on in like the day-to-day or like any of the operations, but I think we all, if Lele asks to like do something like this, we're all
like, all right, we'll
talk. Oh, shit. Here we go again.
Like this.
Yeah.
When you have to explain 8Ball to normies, like what do you say it is? What do you say?
I had a spiel back
Yep.
at Chinatown, because that was the first
Oh,
time.
yes.
Oh yeah.
Canal
When-
Street.
Do you remember the spiel?
It was like, I think it was like an arts community. Anybody could come into that specific spot. So I kind of like took my like retail customer service
Mhm.
base and was like, hey, it's a arts community where you can, or we've got resources for you to make videos, zines, and a radio show.
Yeah.
And I think that was like the very basis of it. And then if somebody kind of like leaned towards a specific kind of interest, then to give them a tour and let them know that they can come back. But yeah, I think when it was at the basement, Super Retro Future, it was. Did I say that? It was right.
I think
Retro
it's
Super
Super
Future.
yeah.
There, when it was there, I think it was more of like an insular kind of thing, and maybe people found out through like Instagram or something. I'm
I
not
don't
too
even
sure.
know because we weren't posting. I don't.
I think it was a lot of word of mouth. I found
Yeah,
out
because like
Oh,
we
okay.
had to like respect that it was like under a storefront.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, we didn't have
And
keys
the basement was shared with like the clothing shop
Reformation.
Reformation.
next
Oh,
door.
yeah.
And you know, it had the products, the stock
Yeah.
downstairs, so we had to be very like I would be like it's a speakeasy, you know.
So for like,
But-
maybe we should explain to people that don't know what this was. But like for the place that we've had the longest, which was about 3.5 years, I think. After Mad Guts, the one that we had for a whole year, we had this space that was like in the basement of a sunglasses store. The way that we got to it was super random. We had to close the Mad Guts. We were trying to figure out a place to put a radio. A friend of mine, through Italian connections, a friend of mine, our friend Daniel, who actually, Daniel, who was like an older friend of mine, San Savini, who had designed actually the first zine set that we did, and together with Nat designed the book actually, Nathaniel. So Daniel was working as a graphic designer for Super, and he was coming to New York for like a month or 2 months working there, and it was like, you guys gotta find, you can't just turn the radio off, you gotta find somewhere to put the radio. It's like, I know, but it's not like it just comes like this. It's like, Super, they have this basement, they don't use it. And it's like, I mean, I can't just go there and like set up in the basement. It's like, yeah, but I'm sure they don't care. And then I went there, and later they were like, you know what, if there were like a bunch of boxes, there were some shelves, some stuff that they kept there, tables, like fancy marble tables that they kept there for like, what do you call it, those places where you sell?
like pop-ups.
Yeah,
Right?
pop-ups
Yeah.
or like, I don't know, some stuff that they do, I don't know.
And
anything
people
about that
would go
business.
through the sunglasses store and
Yeah, so
Yeah.
basically they were like, if you arrange it, if you fix the area, you can find a corner for yourself. You can start doing shit there. But we can't give you keys because otherwise we have to give you keys to the
So this
whole
sounds-
storage.
if someone said to me, it's called 8Ball, they're Italian connections, it's in the basement, I'd be like, get the fuck out of here. I would not go into that basement.
But it was
But,
weird
but
because,
people did.
and it was like right in the middle. It was the first time that we moved to Manhattan. Before that we were always in Brooklyn, so it was right in Soho. So it was like a
It was kind of like it
Really
was like
weird.
really because that era too is like so etched into my brain too. I mean, like you do have to remember like this part of like the 2010s. Like it's just like it's V Files and it's like early Telfar and like you just have this like street packed with kind of like
opening
early
ceremony.
opening
Yeah.
ceremony. So it's just like a lot of like fashion routes.
Crosby Street's right there.
Yeah, exactly. No, I mean it's true, but I mean like that basement was like such a polar opposite of everything happening in the immediate surrounding of it.
like you
It's
went
just,
out to
like-
smoke a cigarette, you'd be like with the
I walked
world.
out and Spike
Yeah.
Jones would be like walking right in front of you and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Or just like it's a pretty like iconic area. I don't know if you like
Yeah.
if you like that type of shit.
We never had be like we had like a phone, like a burner phone, so
Yeah.
people could text that to be let in after hours. Because eventually, then
Man,
the
if,
store
if
will
the
close.
cops ever interview you, you got to come up with a different story. Everything about this is so like.
I mean, it's so odd.
So,
but-
Mr. Severi, you didn't have keys? No?
I mean, it was, and we did some gambling there for.
Yeah, we would throw these like events because we were trying to like just I don't know, have some people over, but it was kind of legal too. I guess some of the stuff we were doing, so we would have people forfeit their phones in like a little box at the beginning. More so just because we wanted people to like be present, be an experience, and there would be someone up front, like guarding it, and then we would play like dice or something. But, yeah. Remember the angry elevator guy?
Oh my
He was
god,
so
true.
angry.
He was also awesome.
He stopped.
What happened to the angry elevator?
There was
guy?
because there was like a free elevator, and so it could only be run by this one guy who didn't speak a single word of English.
And he loved you guys.
Yeah.
I think eventually
It was a love and hate.
he would, you know, one of those elevator guys. They have the whole setup. They have like a chair,
Radio.
like a whole radio, stair spot.
They really don't want you to touch
Yeah.
the,
Oh.
no.
Oh, you can't. We could really.
Yeah,
We
you
weren't
can't
allowed
touch
to.
the thing.
But it was, yeah. I mean, that place was cool. We brought a couch that we found in the street, big couch down the stairs. We brought like a, what do you call it? Water pipe? No, water.
Oh yeah.
Hydrant.
Hydrant.
That was broken.
Yeah.
Somebody carried that down, and somehow it was there forever. I don't. Probably it's still there because we definitely didn't bring
That's
it
so
up. It
fucking
was
funny.
so
Yeah.
heavy. So it's probably still there. We brought like for the library. We brought somebody, and I don't remember whom. Somebody came back and was like, maybe Louis. I have a feeling it was Louis. Came back and it was like on Center Street at the booking, like Manhattan Center
The
bookings.
tunes, yeah.
Yeah. They just threw away all of these shells, metal shells, and we were in the middle of the night. You were there. There were a bunch
Was
of people.
I? Oh,
Yeah, I picture you like bringing it down. It's like 5 or 6 people like bringing down the stairs these like metal shells. So it was really random, and we kind of started from this small and then expanded slowly, and then expanded slowly, and then expanded slowly, and then expanded so much that like their corner was kind of getting too small. So we built a whole cage to be protected, and then we had like this huge space.
Well,
in the
what
back.
it looked like was their sunglasses and Reformation. It looked like the evidence room at like police station, right? The way the cages were. But,
Yeah, they were working in the cage.
yeah.
So weird.
I want to give people a chance to ask questions, but there's one thing that we talked about before, because this, you were saying about, you know, community, or when you arrived, it was a bunch of friends who didn't know what they were doing, which is kind of the definition of, I mean, I've been in bands my whole life, and that's a bunch of friends who definitely don't know what they're doing. And this community is like that, but it's also, I mean, even the story just now in the short version, there's something really magical about how everything, I don't know, it just kept working. Like, here we all are. Like, but anyway, when we talked the first time, you were telling me about being in Italy and what would happen with the schools, how schools would get taken over by the students, which I think is kind of alien to an American, or certainly to a New Yorker, because we definitely didn't get to take over the school at any point. But that's kind of what you guys did, was to take over each space, and somehow through your vibes and your peaceful energy, somehow it all worked. And I mean, I'm sure things went wrong at some point, but
Always.
but anyway, if you can just say a little bit about that, because I just don't think, unless I'm mistaken, I don't think people know about that.
I mean, I don't know, but like in general, like there is the concept. I think people know the concept of occupying a school. I think maybe in general, maybe from the 60s.
It doesn't go that well if we try it here.
Okay, but in Italy, I think they still do. They occupy the school, high schools, sometimes universities. But there needs to be like some real, right now there needs to be like some real political shit, which probably they will do soon, I hope. But, so high schools at some point around October, November, they like choose to have a reasons, whether it's internal with the school, something that isn't working, or generally with political things happening in Italy. They have assemblies, they vote, and every year they usually vote to occupy, and then they literally lock they put a chain on the gate, and they stay in, and so all the students kind of organize for like, usually they let some teachers in, but they only can stay in the teachers' rooms for the whole day. And they usually have like some kind of things that they're trying to get to. What do you call them? Like a negotiation of some kind. And So that's kind of how we handled it. And so when I was 14, I was in high school for the first time, like everyone. And I remember being very impressed by these things. And it lasted 2 weeks, the first occupation that I was at. And after like a week, the first few days I was very shy, in a school. In Italy, you go to high school for 5 years. So the oldest person is like 19, 20 years old, so I'm like 14. And so at first I was very shy, but then after like few days I got like involved, and I would teach like a class on graffiti or something. But yeah, so like students teach each other. So when we're first at the Mad Gods time that I was talking about, we were having meeting. To me, like that was kind of like a starting point. I was like, well, I wanted to try and recreate that vibe where like everyone is there to teach to everybody. So everyone is a student and a teacher, and you're kind of in charge, and you're also there to like learn from it. And that was my old goal. But again, I thought it was very normal, but then I learned that it wasn't super normal everywhere.
It's just a different normal.
Unusual, yeah.
It's normal for this room.
Yeah, maybe, yeah.
Now.
I'm assuming, yes.
Does anyone have anything they want to ask?
Don't be shy. There's very few of us. Most of us know each other. So.
I have a question.
Go for it.
Where's the new space?
I don't know. Ryan.
1 East Broadway.
Exciting.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Any other questions?
I have a question.
Go.
If we're gonna jump off from kind of like the, because I'm interested, I guess, maybe in like, so much of the book revolves around, I think, this being kind of like a working, living document about how like people came together to like create an alternative space outside of kind of like capital. It's like a big anti-capitalist lean. And I think what makes 8Ball interesting to me was that it kind of was in contrast to a lot of like the community kind of engaged practices of the last decade. It was really like something that organized around that idea of people being both teachers and students, and it like I think defied like a pretty, I mean like it was like born out of like kind of fighting against kind of gentrification taking over like community spaces. And in the last decade that we've been organizing, a lot of the people that we like organized with or around have not had the opportunity to like maintain space the same way we have. And that's like one thing that I've always been, I mean, I think we didn't really talk about it in this, but definitely in the book there's a lot of conversations around maintenance and equity and making opportunities, like having like actual physical space like available to as many people as possible. And that's something that I still don't see a lot of other groups have kind of like a opportunity to, like, it's just so expensive and difficult. You saw maybe in like 2020 like a lot of like the mutual aid groups kind of like coming to like, you know, occupy spaces and things like that for short periods of time. But I guess maybe like the biggest, one of the lasting legacies that I've noticed from this is the fact that we actually have space, and that can take on like a certain type of I don't know, just kind of like there's an ideology behind that. We've had multiple conversations internally about like things. Should we not have a space anymore? Like, is this kind of like a dead project in some, you know, especially in the last couple of years? But like, it's we've worked to kind of keep things kind of like in some capacity open. And I guess maybe just having, it's less of a question, more of just like a meandering and reflecting kind of like what that means. Because it's obviously important if it's been around for a decade, and there's still not a lot of things like it in the city.
Also, at like the end of the day, we're just like, where the fuck are we gonna put the zines?
Yeah.
We're like, oh man.
Yeah.
But I see what you mean. But like, for instance, today I was like helping installing these up, and I saw 3 people I never seen who came by to help out.
Yeah.
And I guess they've been involved with 8Ball for
Yeah.
a while. You being one of them. I don't know. If you want to talk about it, but do you think it still makes sense?
What makes sense, 8Ball?
Still, does it make sense to exist? Or I don't know. I think that, like, to me, I'm 43, and to me it's like nothing makes sense anymore. I mean, whatever we're trying to do, we kind of failed at
Even
it.
when we were trying to make this a non-profit and we had to write like 3 or 4 little sentences, we're like, what is 8Ball?
Yeah.
We're just like, oh my god, like can't put into words. But that's what I'm trying to do. Like when I was saying like they didn't really know what they were doing, that's not really true. Like you do, it's like kind of like a blind faith in that, and it's still that thing too. It's just like believing it's like going somewhere and stuff.
Yeah, I don't think that we'd have this many generations of people coming into the space if, it's kind of like a dead project or like community. Even if it's a different community each year, it still counts. It's a community.
Exactly.
Yeah, and in a way, it's like it's maybe we do avoid like answering that question because it's just ever so evolving, and we're not trying to be like categorized, whatever. Like people are trying to like box us in, That's why it was like so hard to explain what it was because like and like why we were so passionate about it. You can't really like explain that.
I think not to.
Yeah, actually, if anybody that's here
I think
has
there's
been
like
involved,
I
please
think
talk.
I think a magic that keeps me around because I've been involved for like about 6 years now is like when I pulled up, I had no idea what I was doing. I felt like an idiot. I say this in the book. I'm like I have no idea what I'm doing, and I'm gonna pull up to a group of people who are like firm in their thoughts and in a direction. Because that's kind of how I saw you, Mason, and we were friends, and I was like, all right, I guess I'll do this thing. And I just ended up like hanging out with a bunch of other dummies for 6 years, and we were all just kind of figuring ourselves out, and we still are. And I came in not knowing what I wanted to do, and just kind of found my way through it. And like even with the new generation of people that I see coming in, like I don't know if you're part. One was behind me, but sorry. Yeah, like I see them kind of figuring that out, like coming into the space and not knowing what they want to do or what they're interested in, and like just kind of learning and being silly with people and falling in love with something. And I think that's kind of the magic of it that keeps people coming in, even if others cycle out, I think, and it's indescribable in a lot of ways, like, and it's non-hierarchical, and it's hard to pin down, and that's, I think, the charisma of it, That's why it makes sense, because you can't really write about it well, even though we have a 500-page book. It's a lot of pictures, so it's not
Yeah, I think to keep it alive, though, like, at least when I came in, I felt like it was, like, a pivotal time, because it wasn't the basement. It was the basement, but then I was there for the transition into entrance and then Chinatown.
Yeah, you were doing the entrance time, too.
Yeah, and I think maybe the basement and entrance had a similar vibe, but it was completely different when it went to
Canal
Chinatown.
Street, yeah.
Because of the fact that there needed to be at least like a sentence to say to people, and like a Google Doc at the very least. And I think that magic can still be there, but there needed to be kind of like some kind of grounding, and that I think brings maybe safety to people, where you can say like, hey, there is some kind of North Star, and something that you can kind of, that I guess reminds you that you can like create, you can not know what you're doing in your own right, but as an entity, 8Ball has got you and supports you if anything kind of goes south or left in interpersonal situations, resources that you need in every kind of category. And I think that's what helped it become a nonprofit. That's what helped it, I guess, move to do a residency at Creative Time right after that, and like it just keeps getting better. But
do you consider that being better, or just simply evolving and moving? Because they're getting, sorry, I'm saying that because they're getting better. To me, then it sounds more like the capitalistic approach to like, we gotta grow, we gotta get better. And it's like, to me, getting better, it doesn't mean like grow in sizes. It's more like,
I think maybe
change shape.
True. I think getting better as in like, it was more amorphous, like when you guys were there, and it was just kind of like a closer knit community. And that radically changed after that when people did just come in through the door at Canal, and when somebody remembered the password to the Instagram, and people in the
so many passwords
started posting, and like it did change. It did change, and I think rather than be so kind of in the air and just like all these particles, it better as in it was more substantial. And I think that's also what I needed as an artist at the time, because of the fact that I wasn't part of that generation, and that generation was still around, and you guys, you know, were still having your fun and doing what you needed to, but I look different, I like do different things, and needed that kind of a place to look. And because it was non-hierarchical, it kind of felt like, so what do we do now? And
we're like,
you know, and I think in that way it got better. And from there, you know, the capitalistic side of like getting bigger and all that, I think that was just like a side effect, you know, that happened. But truly, I think once we were able to kind of say, or at least I like was able to like look at the mission statement or like the guidelines or any of that kind of stuff and be like, yeah, I see myself in that. Like, this reflects both my values, but also what I would want to see for somebody that was coming in later than me, or someone who was younger than me, and you know, might not have the same kind of strength in their, you know, ideals, and are still learning. But it was lucky that I already had like, you know, these communities in outside of New York or outside of 8Ball, and was able to come in and say, hey, these things worked in the places that I've been. If you guys want to try that, do that as well. And I think it was better that way only because of the fact that I wasn't so connected to it like you were. And I think that's sometimes we butted heads over how things, you know, would best serve the people who were there, just because I think I was looking at it in like an objective way of like, I just am like seeing this from a person who just like walked in and
another perspective,
and want to stay here, not kind of, and want to be a volunteer and want to be part of this community, but I wasn't able to really be there in the same way that maybe Yoma was, or maybe
I got
Mason
fired,
was.
and then I got unemployment, and I was like the perfect volunteer.
Wait, that was
really?
that
That's
no,
really
that
it.
Was
I was going,
How do you get-
able to be here.
How do you get fired from 8Ball?
Not from 8Ball,
No,
another job.
from like
another
the
job.
actually
Oh, okay,
paying
sorry.
job.
That was the same deal.
I was like, damn, you guys fired.
No.
It was the exact same deal for me, is that like the time that I was able to kind of like do the most, I guess, put together this like huge kind of document of kind of questioning what 8Ball, you know, meant to the people, is when I was unemployed and like unhinged. Like, it couldn't have happened. It couldn't have happened with like a job or anything like that.
So Canal really reckoned. I don't think that narrative is really in the book, which maybe is kind of my fault.
I mean, I think it's like pointed out. A few
Yeah.
people, I think Sari mentioned Canal. There's a few people that mentioned Canal.
But it's true. I mean, like,
It really was like a switch. Canal, for people that don't know, since we've been introducing every kind of headquarter, was at one point after the basement, after the 3.5 years in the basement with no keys, I think that like they got bought out, Super got bought out by a bigger company, that once they walk down there, they're like, who the fuck are these people? It's like, what? You letting all these people
like,
stay in there?
And you were in a cage too.
Yeah, well, we had built a cage for them,
Okay.
but
They
then
were in the
the majority
So
of
they
the
were in the
basement,
cage.
yeah, we had this crazy big space, and they were like, what? They have free, they're like,
Is it all like
bringing drinks, there's
streetwear,
kids smoking
next door?
pot. What the fuck is what? So they were like, no fucking way, you gotta get these kids out. So they basically were like, you gotta leave, but I don't know how long it's
Right.
gonna take. And so we panicked for a bit, and then Louis saved us for a few months. We got here during the summer, and then
Shout out to
eventually we got this space. There was a storefront on Canal Street. There used to be like a place where they sold like I guess fake goods at some point, and then law
Yeah, at a certain
changed.
point, you were
That's-
able to sell knockoffs like on Canal Street, and then they passed a law that forced everybody to sell it on the sidewalk. And now there's some point
Yeah,
where
my
they're just
whole
trying to take the
childhood
law
was knockoffs on
back. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
Canal Street.
And
I'm very
so
sad that
I
it
guess that place had been closed for 7 years, and it was huge. It was Canal Street was actually gigantic, like
Yeah.
a big,
Yeah.
big space. Yeah, the basement. We had a back room where there was like a whole green room,
yeah.
and it was like really big. And but it was a storefront for the first time. Before we were like in the basement of the subway, in the basement of the superstore. This time you just, if you walk past Canal Street, you just looked in these big windows and you see this huge space. And it's like, what? Someone's playing radio, and there was always like people welcoming people, and there's always somebody making shit. So a lot of people joining during the canal time, and it's true. Suddenly it made the switch from being something where like people came kind of through a filter of our bubble, and
Yeah.
suddenly it was like the bubble didn't exist. It was like you
Mhm.
just
Either
needed
you
to
knew
walk.
them or someone else knew them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was that really was a switch.
It also like opened up like a crazy amount of programming. Like we didn't do that amount of programming at any other space leading up internally. Like
Movie
externally.
club.
Well, movie club, but then we also like moved into like letting people like almost like take over the space at certain points. Like we had people doing like zine fairs or like pop-ups or like giving people the opportunity to do
Music
like,
shows. in
music
there, like,
shows,
fun.
community organizing. Like
Yeah.
it like really became this like, and we had these like walls that we could like move to kind of split things off. Like we had different orgs coming in like outside of us to like do like meetings there.
Mhm.
Like it really became
Sure.
like a community center, like in a way where we just didn't have the opportunity to really. We always did programming and stuff like that, but it like, I don't know. I mean, there's so many people that like started there that have stayed at 8Ball since from Canal Street, and like, I definitely know like there's a lot of PTSD from the amount of shit that we were like taking on, because it was just like one event after the next, after the next, after the next, and like
I left for 4 months, so I
Yeah.
was not like
yeah,
whatever
yeah.
you guys like literally
Yeah.
left.
Right. So it was just like I think like a really we were trying to split even because it was just like the first time that it was like the general public was just able to walk in and out, and then there was like a lot that was like a huge like shift in the way that I think like older members of the community like felt about the space. And you saw a lot of people, I think, kind of like that were originally like a part of 8Ball from the beginning, kind of leave at that point. And then I think there was, as Emma was like stated, like I think a lot of like internal meetings that really started this kind of conversation about like what does like congealing all of this energy into like documents and written record like look like, and how do you pass on that information? Because there was a lot of baton passing and a lot of like just a lot of lessons learned. I
Yeah.
think
I
in a
think
good way. That was really
true.
yeah.
I do think that it was needed only because of the fact that at the basement and at entrance, it was still kind of operating like a bunch of artists, photographers, you know, who all are friends, and just want to make cool shit
Mm-hmm.
when that kind of wasn't the truth of the space anymore. It wasn't like 30 people. It was at, you know, some points like 100 or something like that.
Yeah.
So I think that was the main shift that just needed to happen, only because it would have kind of, I think it would have crashed and burned if not for us switching into acting like a community center.
Yeah. And volunteers really put in the work. Like, it turned away from like making your own zines or your TV show, and I know a lot of volunteers that were there at that space were really becoming like, every week was just like helping somebody else like put together like a big event. But I think that really like taught a group of people that are like, you know, like I'm like thinking like, you know, like Will, like like a lot of people that like came in during that time that like just got a crash course into how to do a little bit of everything. So it was like, and they, you know, it yeah.
Oh yeah, and there was the bolstering of the political side of it.
Yeah.
Rather than
Where we had like an actual
kind of making them both equal.
Mm-hmm.
So there needed to be, I guess, some work put in to reach out to these kinds of groups that we did want in the space, and then also reflecting that in our ideals and our mission, that we do kind of want to make it a radical kind of space, and that needs like upkeep and like grooming and like checking in on both like what we stand for, and then also how the people who are in the space feel about what's kind of going on. And I think that was really cool to see. It still meant like there is like so much work to do, because like the art side was like super down pat. It was the other side of it that
Yeah, the admin, when you
that
really
changed.
started working on the admin side, basically.
Yeah, and I mean also it was canals and like the exact same thing. It was dudes like selling the bags right in front of the
Yeah.
space, and then also sometimes just like being shitty, and you know, younger
Yeah.
people coming in and
Yeah.
and like not
Run
having
off the
somewhere to
streets.
check, you know, be
Passing
like
out. Yeah.
literally having no place to like tell people, hey, not knowing who to like go to, because it was just like people who were like
Yeah.
all around the space. I think that admin was needed just to, I mean, I didn't want to be HR, but it was like
It was though.
there
For
needed
real.
to be something for the people, because I could just see it from like my point of view. If I was like 20 and saw this like community like group on like, I don't know, Instagram, or like my friend told me about this event and then I want to come in or something like that, and then I just come in one day, somebody welcomes me, and then I don't know where to go next. Like, do I just like come back? How do I volunteer? Like, and then not knowing you know, coming in the next time and not recognizing the people who are in there again. It's, I think it really, really did help to make a community of people who just, you know, you can kind of like rely on. It was like a reliable kind of experience that you could expect each time. Yeah.
Any questions?
Talking for a minute.
Yes, please.
I have a question. You described the experience of when you started on Canal Street, then you opened to the broader public in a different way, so it wasn't only your bubble, like how many very different people.
Mhm.
So I'm from a like small town in Germany, and what we did, we transformed the deli into like a community space to hold like cultural events. And first, when we started out, we had of course the vision of being like full inclusive, like anyone can come. It's open the whole day. And what we then figured is like some experiences started arising where it was like you have a movie night for anyone, and then like some people come and like men make other women uncomfortable, and you have like all these
Yeah.
kind of frictions that arise through being like fully inclusive. And I want to ask like if you had any of these experiences and how you.
Oh, all the time. This is that's why
That's why it
Mel
kinda
made like a
started.
document that was like a binder this big of like just things that
Yeah,
were supposed to.
unemployed and
Yeah.
unhinged at that time.
Where it's
I just-
still I think it's still a problem. That's kind of the issue of like
Yeah.
an open space.
I
If you
think-
want to be fully open, you'll get into a situation where someone's gonna be a shithead. What are you gonna do? Like, no shitheads allowed. How do you know? They need to act like a shithead in order to know that they're shithead.
I think like
Yeah, I'm sorry. The seltzer is like hitting. I'll be right back. Oh, my own sorry.
I know that feeling when the seltzer hits.
I think that's why I guess the fake HR shit started.
I mean, I remember when I, like, it wasn't like HR, but I was like considered because like, oh, like, I don't know.
It's an
people get along with
uncomfortable
you.
change.
Yeah, like I
Yeah.
don't know.
It was like, it had to have been an uncomfortable change for like the people before because of the fact that, and that's why we had, you and I, so many conversations about it, because I think it is hard to imagine maybe on like your end what it may, I guess, like the kind of problems that just arise just from like me walking into a space and like what I would need as like an artist and just like a person.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, yeah, I don't know, risky to like come into this space and be like, so if anything happens to you, I don't know, like, ball out, like, fuck it, we ball. Like, it was really, it was like, that's basically what the energy was. And I think like a month into 8Ball, that kind of did happen to me at least. And then I was seeing different kinds of situations. Artistic on the artistic side, where like I got censored for somebody not agreeing with what I was saying in like a video, and then not knowing who or where to go with.
Yeah, there wasn't a structure.
Yes, and then we moved to like Canal, and that's when it started being like more interpersonal situations, and like. I was like doing peer mediations with like people. I was like, you guys have problems, like, okay, come outside. We're gonna like.
Yeah,
just,
I mean,
like,
we were
talk
doing
about
that before, and it was very difficult. But also, like
Did that here?
Yeah.
Which sucked because it shouldn't be on like one person. And I truly think it would have been different if I had a job at the time.
But it was also like at a time where our ages, or especially him, was like closer to people who were involved. So it was like more like friend based and being like, yeah, I like care about you, or like I don't know you that well, but like talking it out. And then now realizing like it's some kind of like mediation, but like not like not being professionals or like.
I think it was like
trying.
I think it was like the versions, the issues, like because the space got bigger, the kinds of issues also just like expanded.
Yeah.
So before, I think like maybe you could put like the certain problems that happened in the basement or within like the friend group into like one or two categories. When it got bigger, it was just like
so it's like less
all kinds of stuff.
It's like squashing. It's between like squashing beef and then like actually having like socioeconomic like disparity between volunteers, and then like people like coming from Canal Street being so central. You had people coming from Uptown, you're coming from Brooklyn, you're coming from all these places that were like, you know, the Bronx, and it was just like congealing in a place where I think a lot of, you know, we had to deal with like volunteers being like racist, and like volunteers like not like speaking to like Black people in the space, or like how exactly do you like reconcile like the community initiative when you really do have to have like a hard line. These are like not like things we're going to cross. And then at the same time, so much about 8Ball is like building friendships and relationships, and like sometimes there's obviously people that really love what 8Ball's messaging is, but are having like a really difficult time like making friends with other people like in the space. And like like there's so many sorts of like, you know, dynamics that are at play at the same time, while also trying to like manage the overhead of the space. Like it really was like and just I think there was just like you know, at the same time we're internally trying to kind of like understand what like a board is to like 8Ball, and like there's a couple different levels of like you know, organizing that are being done at the same time by people that are like, it's like, bro, I got a BFA. Like, I was out here like doing sculptures, and now I'm like out here doing conflict mediation. So it's like, yeah, it really was like.
I think I personally was like, I guess lucky enough in that time to space. Like I had the energy for it. I had the time and the energy to like do all that. But I think that's around the time that the political side of 8Ball needed to be solidified and cemented because of things happening like that. Where it was just like, okay, this is seeming like it's just like a place to put together a radio show or make a zine, but if like things like that can happen, then it just means that people, I don't know, just aren't looking at the wall and like reading, kind of like ignoring what the mission or the values are, and there weren't, because there wasn't some kind of structure, there was really no way to kind of keep those in check and like have people reminded that these are the things that 8Ball stands for. And when it was in the basement or at entrance, it was implied, and like people knew because they were the ones that created it, you know, or they were good friends with the ones that created it. So I think when we were talking about kind of the ways that 8Ball, in my eyes, needed to change, I think maybe it felt, and correct me if I'm wrong, like obvious to you, like you're like, obviously people
will
are gonna act right. And then I, because of just my experiences and like in life in general, I was like, don't trust that they don't act right. People don't act right. So it was kind of like a back and forth in that way, and it just I think the change just needed to happen, and I think now it has. I think it has. Absolutely.
I'm sure that they still have to do
happening. You know, work in progress as usual. But better.
A different. I think the progress bar really went up.
Let's say that.
During that time period. Because before, I think that it was like, why do we need a progress bar? You don't need any.
No, it was more like we were just like, I don't know. I just wanted friends. I just wanted to be friends with Lele. And I was just smoking. We were just like smoking weed in the backyard of Mudguts, and he's just talking about like the vision and dreams and like that swing. I was just like, yeah, let's take it there, whatever, you know. And even the first time like I ever got like paid, I guess, or like whatever money we got, he wanted to reward me. I just bought a bike just so I could bike with him to reggae night. And like that was it for me, you know. The bar was always to get better, and like I think I dodged a lot of like roles too, like pivotal roles or like taking leadership, because like I understood that like what he it's not like Lele aiming for something, but he wanted the community to like aim for, and I really fucking believed in that. And so like, you know, I just like shifted a lot, also because I didn't think I was like good enough, and then you just like move so fast and doing all this, and then you take a step back and you're like, whoa, dude, like now from like us and people like going out their way, and it just being us to at one point, and then now it's like 50 to like 100 volunteers. It's like, okay, that's pretty incredible.
I think I can even summarize just how I felt like when we would talk about this kind of stuff, is that you loved 8Ball, and I wanted to love 8Ball, but like just needed we just needed a couple of things. So that's how I could summarize it.
Any other questions? No other question? Yeah, please.
Where do you see it? Like, what do you want for 8Ball in the future?
Well, you should ask somebody involved with 8Ball.
Open question.
Oh man, I don't know. It's a good question. It's a really hard question. I don't know. I want it to kind of keep going as a place where people can still come to and do all the things everybody had been talking about of finding friendship and ways to like make some creative work. I've always said that like at every major inflection point where we're like, oh shit, like what if this is like truly the end of 8Ball? My first thought was like, well, if it ends here, then like the very next thing I'm doing is to go find something just like this. So, yeah.
What about new people, brand new people? Do you have something to? What would you? Where do you? Why you even at 8Ball?
I mean, it's such a good group of people, and ever like just like in the past month of just being here in the spaces that everyone. I mean, in the new space, 1 East Broadway, it's just so beautiful. I've never seen anything like it. And the archives are so good, and like the shows are so good, and everyone is an incredible artist, and I'm like, whoa, it's great.
Maybe that's better. Any other questions? Don't be shy. We can also end it here.
Yeah.
It's up to you.
Oh, it's not up to you.
It's up to you. It's up to us.
Well, thank you.
Thank
everybody.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
It's a front. It's been a front the whole time.
I know. I was like, we're going on an hour.